Hey everyone, it's Melody with Design by Melody. Here today I have my Felicity Jane January Kit. I have 2 pieces of 12 by 12 paper left, a bunch of little scraps, 2 little cut apart cards left. Of course I've got my stamp set. I've got this bag, a doily, and then a bunch of little pieces here. I've got my acrylic pieces and all my stickers off to the side here. Not a ton left, but definitely enough to start with. So this layout, the topic of conversation is going to be using multiple photos. Now I have 3 different photos here, all of the same day, probably about the same 5-minute spread, but I want to include all of them on this layout because they tell a specific story, and I want to make sure that we remember that for years to come. So I'm only going to use this one on the layout because it has less going on in the background. I am going to probably cover this receptacle or this utility thing with a tag or something, but I'm going to include these other 2 photos probably in the pocket. I am not one to shy away from using multiple photos. There's even one layout that I did of the zoo, and I think I have like 5 or 6 photos on there. I have no problem including multiple photos. However, this tells a very specific story, and I feel like if I were to include all of the photos on the front, it'd be a little bit too much. It would be kind of distracting. You wouldn't focus on the one photo in the journaling. You would focus more on the photos and maybe not even notice the journaling. So for this layout, I'm going to have one main photo and then I'm going to tuck the other ones in the bag. I am going to use these little bows. I've had a difficult time using this kit because I don't have any little girls. I only have boys. So I'm going to use these little tags, kind of like pull tags on these photos. And these are the bows, I'm going to use these bows as little pull tags on the photos, I believe. That's my plan. We'll see how it comes together. But yeah, stay tuned. Don't forget about the 10% off your first month's kit for one-time purchase or for subscription. If you were to sign up for a subscription, the coupon code is Melody. It will run from the beginning of February till the end of February or until the kit sells out, whichever comes first. Just check out felicityjane.com and then go to my blog post, which will be linked in the down bar below, if you'd like to see more details about that. Plus the coupon code will be listed there as well. So anyways, let's jump right into it. Thank you. Alright, so as I mentioned, the goal in the intro is to show you a way that you can incorporate multiple 4x6 photos on a layout. Now, like I'd mentioned, I do not shy away from using a lot of photos on a layout typically. It doesn't bother me. As long as it looks visually appealing, I really don't mind. However, this story that I'm telling is about my dad before he died, about a month before he died, and it's something really specific that I want to make sure that I have in my scrapbook. So I am choosing to just use the one photo that's a little less busy, and then also just have my journaling spot. So it's going to be a little bit more basic now. Of course, I'm going to embellish the layout, but reducing the number of photos actually on the layout, especially when I'm taking the busier photos off, really I think is going to help you stay focused on what the actual photo and story are that are on the front of the layout. Plus, I always enjoy having some interactive elements in my scrapbook. Excuse me. I used to. I don't do it quite as much as anymore, just because I don't think about it. But I used to do a lot of interactive things in the layout where you could pull out cards, pull out, lift up flaps, do different things like that. Maybe that's something I should really focus on putting back in here. Not that I haven't done it, but I just don't do it quite as much as I used to. Now, I took out 2 Project Life cards. These are from the Honey edition, from the Becky Higgins Project Life sets. And I just trimmed it down to take off the rounded corners to be able to use it as my journaling spot here. It already had a printed label spot on here, so I'm just going to layer some of these stickers and a little piece of this border strip on top of that, just to give it a little bit more of a layered effect. I really like the border strips that are in the Felicity Jane papers. All of them are beautiful, just like the papers. I would expect none less, I suppose, since the papers are so beautiful. But I'm definitely going to use up all of those border strips, and if I don't use them, I'll put them in my stash to use. Now, this is the 5th layout and final layout that I'll be making with this kit. I just don't have enough left to do a whole nother layout. I don't even have enough left to do Project Life Spread. However, my thought, and we'll see how this works, but my thought is to take all the little scraps and bits that I have left, because I do have one Project Life card left, and maybe create another Project Life card so I'll have 2 coordinating Project Life cards to use in a later spread. We'll see. This isn't a total definite, but I want to see if I can do that. But I'll make it part of my kit review video. We'll see if it works. If it does, I'll tack it on to the end of the video, just to share with you a couple more things that you can do with your scraps to really make the most out of your kit. Now, I do want to apologize. I put it in a little title box thing at the beginning of this video. For some reason, I guess I had the lighting pointed a little bit more facing the camera instead of more so facing the desktop. So my video here is a little bit overexposed, especially in certain points. Right now it's not so bad, but at the beginning it was very bright and kind of washed out looking, so I apologize for that. Typically I do much better about setting up my lighting, but for whatever reason I missed that when this video started, which I was a little disappointed about. Even though the colors are still very easy to see, it's just not quite as clear as it is in person, and that's kind of disappointing. Now, just like I said, I'm adding my little tabs here, and I just went ahead and stapled them just to give them a little bit more stability. And I did back them with the pink cardstock. It's not necessary, but I order my photos from Shutterfly, and it had also written on the back of the photos so I would know which layout they were going to go on. So it had writing on it, and I thought it looked messy, so I went ahead and backed it with that pink cardstock. Now I had this little string left, and it had come off of one of the envelopes that was in the kit, so I just used it to make a little bow. And then I'm also going to use it to layer with the other stripe bow, the last bow that I have left, the last sticker. Now, it's not my favorite part of the layout. I probably could have left that off and would have been fine, but I was trying to make use of everything in the kit, and so that part I could have done without. But it doesn't look bad. It just is not exactly what I prefer. If it hadn't have been in the kit, I definitely wouldn't have added it, so I kind of wish I had just left it off. All right, I'm going to make a little cluster at the top here with 3 little banners that I'm going to make, and then I'm going to use one of the little labels up there, and I'm going to stamp just February 2014, Charlotte, North Carolina. It gives you the date and place of where this photo was taken. Actually, it's Stanley, North Carolina. I don't exactly know why I put Charlotte, but it's close enough. Stanley is a little town right outside of Charlotte. Now on the green tag at the top, I put more photos and a little arrow pointing to the bag, and I'm going to just layer this right here. Now one thing, and I believe I mentioned this at the recap at the end, when you use these bags, just be aware of how flimsy they are and what the weight of the items are that you're putting inside the bag, because if it's too heavy, it'll pull on the bag and it'll rip it, because these bags are a little bit delicate. But I am going to kind of fix that at the end with one of those extra border strips. So I've glued it to the background itself, or that's what I'm getting ready to do. And I just glue around the edges. And then I'm going to use that black and white striped border strip to actually layer over the bag. And that's going to give the bag a little bit of stability, kind of act like a rubber band in a sense on top of it. But I'm also using that to kind of layer my photo on top of it. It's kind of like putting a book on a shelf type of thing. A lot of you have heard that analogy in scrapbooking. And if you haven't, basically what it is you think about everything on your layout kind of like a shelf. I mean, kind of like a wall. So if you were to hold your layout up, what would fall? So that's kind of a really bad explanation, but basically each thing has to be grounded with something. So like the photo has to be grounded with something. So this border strip that I'm putting acts like a shelf on a wall basically. So the photo is sitting on top of it. So if you were to literally put this against the wall, the photo wouldn't fall because it's sitting on that shelf. Okay, that's a really bad explanation. Maybe I'll have to try to show you that in a video so it'll make more sense. Anyways. So I'm not journaling here in a bit, and I am going to add it with the Sharpie because this grid pattern, it's a grid in a hot pink, by the way, so it matches. But because it's a little bit bold, I use the Sharpie so you're able to really see the journaling. I'm sorry, I yawned. That is so terrible. I'm really not tired, but I don't. Whenever I do my voiceovers, it's quiet in the house. Usually it's when everyone is asleep. And it's just nice and relaxing, so I start to yawn. Not that it's, well, I guess it is kind of late. It's almost midnight, but I usually stay up till 1 or so. So it's not like incredibly late, but it's just so quiet and relaxing that I get really relaxed. Usually I'm sitting here with a cup of coffee. And yeah, I drink coffee late at night. It doesn't bother me. Just sitting here, relaxing. I usually just have a lamp on. It's just so quiet and relaxing. The baby's asleep. I say baby. The boy is asleep. The husband's asleep because he wakes up really early for work, and I'm just relaxed. Anyways, so I had the second journaling card out, and I wasn't really sure what to do with it. I thought about just putting it back in my stash, and then I thought, well, you know what? These photos that are in this bag just have a pink background. I should add a little bit of journaling on those. So I end up adding a little bit of journaling by cutting that other card, the card that looks like ledger paper, cutting it into 2 pieces, and then I'm going to mat it on a piece of that teal paper. So let me read you my journaling. Just as we always chuckle at Daddy's get up when he bundles up to wheel outside to chill and smoke a cigar. He piles blankets and jackets on so high you can't even tell it's him. The grandsons just play around him as he wheels around all covered up. So my dad typically, whenever he was at the end, he'd be in a lot of pain, and so he would go smoke a cigar while he was waiting for his medicine to kick in. And it was just like his daily habit, he just went and smoked a cigar outside, talked to the dogs, pet the dogs while he was sitting there smoking his cigar, watched the deer in the yard, whatever the case may be. Here he was watching the grandsons play basketball, and it wasn't that cold outside. I mean, Kaylin was sitting there, and he had like sweatpants on, but he was wearing a t-shirt. So it wasn't incredibly cold. My dad was always real cold. So it was just funny though, because he looks like you can't even tell who he is. Can't even tell it's a person really. So it's just funny though, because there are a lot of pictures of my dad like this. All right. And then the journaling on the back of the photos and the photos are basically the same thing. It's just him wheeling around in this cover, like all covered up. You can't tell it's him. One of them says, being outside with the dogs and enjoying his view of the woods is one of Daddy's favorite places to be. And I did write this present tense because, and I was checking my spelling here, by the way. iPhones are amazing. So what was I going to say? Oh yeah, I wrote this present tense because at the point that this is going to be in my scrapbook album, he was still alive. So that was kind of important for me to be able to do that present tense. And then the other photo says, even though he couldn't do any manual labor, he still likes to spend the time outside with Mama, helping her. And the helping is in like quotations, because he wasn't really helping her. He was directing her, is probably more of what it was. And I went ahead and pulled out the stamp set. I'm in love with the stamp set, like I mentioned before. And I'm going to put it on the side of those little journaling spots. And I'm sorry you can't see me because I'm off camera, but all I'm doing is prepping my stamp. All right, here we go. And I'm just putting those on the back. And then so this one says side note. And then the other one I'm going to stamp says, it's going to have a little one that says and then. And then I'm going to stamp the side note one again. Because it's just an extra little bit of information. And I wrote that in just regular pen because it wasn't like the major story. It was just some little tidbits of information. I've thought about, and I don't know, this is just an idea. So as you all know, as I have referenced in this video, my dad died in March of 2014. And so I have thought about using my Smash journal or using some sort of journal to write down memories of him, because Kaylin he died 2014. Kaylin had just turned 3. he was like 3 years and 3 months whenever my dad died. So he remembers little small bits and things, but I think he remembers more of what we tell him, not necessarily actual memories. Like he remembers my dad would always hold his hand at the end because we would sit beside my dad's hospital bed. We had a hospital bed set up at my parents' house. So he would sit beside the hospital bed and hold my dad's hand. So I'm thinking it might be worth just having a little journal where I write down random memories, from my childhood, not necessarily just of my dad, but just of, my parents in general, because I think those are things that, when Kaylin's 20 years old, those might be things that he might want to go back and read about. And, as I get older, the memories fade more and more and more. And I make my own memories more and more and more. So some of the other ones kind of fade out a bit. So just an idea. Let me know if y'all think that'd be interesting, or if you, not necessarily interesting, because I probably won't be sharing it, but because it would be a work in progress across however many months and years. But tell me if you guys have any different ideas of how to kind of capture some memories, because I don't necessarily have photos, and I would love to have a whole bunch of scrapbook pages with stories on them, but I'm not going to be able to sit down and write 30, do 30 scrapbook pages as quickly as I could at least sit down and write down the memory. But let me know if y'all have any other ideas. I guess a smash journal would be pretty easy because the page is already in there. I could just kind of carry it around and write down bits and pieces of information. But yeah, and that's a little bit decorative. So if I never ended up doing anything with it, it would still be kind of decorative. But just let me know what y'all think, if y'all have any other ideas. So what I'm doing right here is I had some just little scraps with little hearts on it. So I'm just kind of layering those in a couple different places because, this is a scrapbook page about my dad. And of course I love him. So there's all these little hearts everywhere. I'm just doing some last little bits of layering and just embellishments. I wanted to add a small little layer under the label that's on the photo. And it just brings a little bit more to that. It's not necessary, but it just adds a little bit more. And I really like using the blank space in the photo to do that. It covers up that little ugly utility thing anyways. And then I had this border strip that you saw with the hot pink hearts. I'm just cutting a few of those out and layering them in a few places. Well, not really. I guess they are layered. Putting them in a few different places. And then I did add a few of those acrylic pieces. I have not a heart. I have a little plus sign up right beside the more photos. I have a plus sign up by the date label that I made. And I used an American Crafts Christmas roller date stamp to do that, by the way. And then I have some little arrows down there by the journaling pointing into the page. Now this is where I'm going to add my title. I almost forgot to add my title. A lot of times I do my title at the beginning, but this time I did not at all. So what it's going to say is, who's in there? Who is in there? It's going to say Granddaddy with like exclamation points. And right here I have a question mark because I'm thinking I'm doing a question mark here, but I'll realize that in a minute and change it. I like this alpha. It's very easy to work with. It's like a puffy alpha. However, they're not exactly the stickiest. Especially not the little dots. And sorry, you'll see in the last couple of videos, you guys have probably seen Kaylin's hand stick in a couple different places. These were done the weekend that we were kind of snowed in, or really iced in. We didn't have as much snow here. We had a lot of ice. So he was dabbling around my craft room, I guess you could say. He'd pop in, pop out, ask me to play a game with him, ask me for a snack, ask me to go outside. And, these videos are continuous. You guys can't see when I start and stop them, but I probably start and stop my videos 4 or 5 times. Doing different things with him, especially when it's on like the days that I'm home in the middle of the day. Sometimes I scrapbook at night, but none of these last probably 5 or 6 videos have all been done during the day. All right, and this is really going to complete my layout. I'm really pleased with all 5 of the layouts that I got done with my Felicity Jane kit. I will be doing a kit review video at the end of this week, so on Friday that should be posted for you. I have another video going up tomorrow, but not Felicity Jane related. But check back on Friday if you'd like to see my kit review. I kind of created a spreadsheet with all the details, and then I'll put my information, like my review information, at the bottom of it. So anyways, thanks for joining me. I'm going to do a quick recap of this layout for you. Okay, here's the completed layout. The topic of this one was using multiple photos, and like I mentioned, I had one photo that I really wanted to use as my focal photo, and then I wanted to put the journaling. Like I had said before, I felt like if there were too many photos on the layout, it'd be too busy and you wouldn't be able to focus just on this one and the journaling. So I made my little pull tabs like I told you I was going to do, and I actually added a little bit of journaling on the back of these two photos just to add a little bit more information. It's not private information or anything like that. It was just another place to add something. I felt like the backs were a little too plain, so I added those. Just a note, if you're going to add multiple photos or different things that might be slightly bulky, if you're going to use a paper or glassine bag, be careful because the bag is a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Delicate. There we go. A little bit more delicate, and if you put heavier things in there, it's a little bit difficult to hold all that in there. So what I did to kind of help assist with that is I used a border strip at the bottom and one at the top to kind of keep that bag stable. And as you can see, it keeps it from just like pulling forward, and it'll keep it from ripping here at the top. And then I did put glue all around the outside of the bag as well. So that is it. That's one way that you can incorporate extra photos without having your layout be too busy. I hope you enjoyed it. This is the last layout that I'm going to do with this Felicity Jane kit, so stay tuned. I'll have my Killer Kit video in just a day or two for you. Alright guys, and don't forget about the 10% discount code. I'll put a picture of this at the end as well. Alright, thanks guys. Bye.